Welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. I'm Luke Velasquez, and we've got a fantastic episode here for you. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Taylor. Kyle, thank you for joining me.
As always, welcome back.
Yeah,
we
had sort of an abbreviated With Sonar last week, but it was a good one.
Yeah, I always like changing it up a little bit, and to be associated with the crowds that we were associated with last week during our Carrier Summit definitely allowed us to showcase what we have with SONAR, pun fully intended, but also it keeps you on your toes.
It does, and there's a lot there. I think what's been really exciting since we've been doing some of these virtual events is we've seen, I think, the community, carriers, brokers, shippers, just kind of the whole group. The engagement has really surprised me about how much people have just bought into the virtual events so quickly. That's been exciting to see.
I think. Don't want to underplay what FreightWaves has done here with the virtual community. I mean, this has never been able to be done. For us to be live here in Chattanooga, and then also looking at the Slack channel, looking at LinkedIn, everything live, and the production value of what we've been able to incorporate is just hats off to the team that are in our ears right now, because those guys really are the people that made this thing shine.
Absolutely, 100%. So we've got a lot going on here on Sonar today. And by the way, this is not a fashion statement of what's on my arm. I had stitches. But so anyway, although maybe it'll be a fashion statement somewhere, I don't know, but not for me. So we've got some critical events happening. Some hurricanes coming here, especially in the southeast Gulf region of the United States. As if capacity wasn't tight enough already. Let's be honest, that's probably going to tighten things up some more.
No, that couldn't happen. We talk about record high tender rejections, record high volumes. It's every day. We're ringing the bell every day, and that's, sometimes it gets annoying, and I'm sure you guys are tired of us saying that.
It's honestly laughable at this point, though.
But it's like what we were just thinking the other day. What if anything can affect this even more than what it could be? It's not going to be retail season. I mean, we're now in a prolonged retail season because we're not going to be having the Black Friday event. I mean, Walmart, Target both sent releases that they're not going to be having their typical Black Friday events. And so it's like, all right, well, what else could make this complicated? What could change the landscape of what we have currently in this process? And that is
a hurricane.
A Cat 4. Sorry, that was really loud. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You want to try it again?
It was a Cat 4.
I kind of like the first one a little better.
It gave it a little bit more oomph. But yeah, Hurricane Laura.
Yep.
We also have a Laura here at FreightWaves as well, who runs our customer success, and she is probably one of the brightest people we have. But yeah, Hurricane Laura is coming with a vengeance. It's Category 4. It just got upgraded today, and that's going to be hitting really the petro capital of the United States. If you looked or watched our last show, or not our last show, but Craig Fuller, our CEO, was on our freight market update, and he was talking about some of the FEMA loads, what's to be expected if you're going to be running FEMA loads, and then also what's going to be happening to that area that's really known for oil, and also has a pretty big port.
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the next couple of hours, actually, you figure into the early evening tonight, well, Hurricane Laura is probably already going to start hitting parts of Louisiana, and then it will continue, obviously, to Houston as well.
Right.
So, I mean, it's here. It's happening. It's just a matter of, does it hit in full force tonight or tomorrow? I think is more the question at this point. But it's coming. What's interesting is we're already starting to see some of this effect in freight. Actually, I was looking at the inbound volume going into Houston and the inbound volume going into Louisiana, and those have actually upticked a lot, and that's got to be largely due to FEMA loads, right? You have some of those supplies that they're getting ready to bring in, and we're starting to see that already in SONAR, and that is a great opportunity, I think, for carriers to reposition themselves and know when those loads are happening, and also making sure that they're getting their fair share there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and to the point of the hurricane's hitting today, pretty much. So they're already having some effects there, and so the market conditions in those areas are already starting to come down. So today is when they're hitting. So really, if you didn't have it out now or yesterday, your freight isn't making it.
Yeah.
And so, or your trucks aren't going in there. And so what we're actually seeing is, that classic case of the red center, the orange middle, and then the green exterior, is that the ripple effect of this is occurring now in those surrounding markets, now coming back into the Joplin market, to the Tulsa market, to really the center of the country. We're seeing tender rejections that are all averaging about 45 to 50%. I mean, that is just unheard of.
It's absolutely insane.
It's like as if tender rejections that we talk about all the time isn't high already. So we're already starting to see that, and I think we're going to see more, especially because that hurricane's going to be taking a sharp right turn across Tennessee.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of those markets potentially moving around it. So either having to push off tender lead times, which I wonder if we were able to see if shippers were holding or sending out their freight faster or slower, how could we do that?
Well, Kyle, I'm glad you asked. We have the perfect thing here in SONAR, tender lead time index that'll tell you just that. But no, actually, before we get there, flip this up on the screen real quick, because I think this is interesting for folks to see. So what you're looking at right here, and we've overlaid the hurricane here in SONAR. I've actually paused this. This is the 3-hour. Let me put this to a live feed here real quick so you can see where it's going to be moving over the next 6 hours. Okay. So right here is where this is right now. That's an hour out, and then you can kind of see the pathway as it continues to move over the next 6 hours. Your scale's over there in the top right corner. But if we hover over here in New Orleans, outbound tender rejections are sitting at almost 28% out of New Orleans right now. Very hot, but that's shipping out, and I think that's actually not quite as high as it normally is because shippers are holding some of that freight. They're not shipping, so there's less freight to be rejected.
Right.
Versus if we flip this around to inbound tender rejections, all of a sudden New Orleans jumps up to almost 38%.
Yeah, I don't want to go to New Orleans.
No. You better pay me a lot.
Yeah.
And even then, it might not be enough.
You know, I'm going to stop, depending on where I'm coming from, I'm going to stop in Dallas and hang out in a hotel for a day.
Those $8 a mile loads, they're not going to be unheard of. They're going to happen.
Yeah, well, they were already happening, going from LA down to the southeast. So now you add a hurricane that's going to be going there. You're going to see some massive service failures that are going to arise. And what's a great indicator for service failures is those tender rejection rates, because route guide compliance, as route guides fail, tender rejections are going up, service is failing. And so we'll start to see that, because we're already seeing that in those markets in the Arkansas, Mississippi, and lower Tennessee areas that are already being affected by that. So even if you're not technically getting hit by the hurricane, capacity is tightening up. Yeah. And if FEMA starts to release those loads and start prepping, and just like with what Craig was talking about, which is, they put you on the outskirts, really along the coast, so that you can be at military bases and be prepared to go. So what are a couple things that you need to be prepared for is a little bit of layover time. Bring some entertainment.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some layover time, and don't be expected to be loaded quickly in and out. There's
hand unload and load is what Craig was bringing up, and I can't imagine that.
It could take a while.
Yeah.
That could take a while. Yeah, it's ain't going to be 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out.
Hey, listen, on time and full, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think this also shows, so everybody knows when this type of stuff happens, if FEMA gets involved, right? There's always a premium that's there. But to understand, both for the carriers and for the brokers out there, for the brokers, understand what you're getting yourself into. These are not going to be easy loads to cover.
Right. Even
if you have a ton of money. So just be prepared. When you have a ton of money in there, just be prepared that you're going to be paying a lot as well, especially with tender rejections as high as they are. Carriers will ask for that premium. All right, so understand that as you're going in. I wouldn't spend all day negotiating rates with carriers. Make a little money, make some money, right? You're putting in the work too.
Everyone loves a little bit of money.
Exactly, but just understand that these carriers will ask for a premium. And for the carrier's perspective, remember, tender rejections are almost 40%. Almost 40%. The national average is 24%.
Right.
And we're sitting at almost 40%. Understand how much leverage you have here right now.
Correct.
Assuming you want to drive into.
And I mean, we were talking about really just the freight capitals of the United States, and what do we have there? We got Memphis, really, right in the heart of that, if this does take that sharp right turn. And so a massive railhead being the Memphis market, which comes in from Savannah and from LA to then service the Southeast. And so with that, if we really start to see that market getting hit, I mean, you can only imagine the service delays that you're going to have there as well. And so, we'll further see, and I think, don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this is the reason why near-time market intelligence is critical in this time, to give you those signals, those notifications, those indicators of this is what's happening. Are we going up or down? Who else is going to tell you that? I mean, I can tell you what happened a couple weeks ago pretty well.
Yeah.
But what's going on now? If I'm in these markets, well, looking at some, load board postings isn't going to help.
No, it's not going to tell you the whole story, right? It's going to tell you a piece of the story, but it's not going to tell you the whole story. And to your point, we've got the trajectory here. So right now, winds are at 140 miles an hour, and
well, before you say that, let's just give the people what they want here. This is the beauty right here. This is our critical events map, and I don't think this has ever been on WithSONAR.
I don't know if it has either.
And so this is one of the most in-depth maps that looks at global weather events and gives you indicators to what assets are going to be affected by these, and assets being oil rigs, assets being
airports,
both air and ocean
seaports,
ports.
yeah.
And so this is what these circles are saying. And so when you start seeing them in the red, those are the areas that are being critically affected. And so with this, back to your point, we can identify what's going on. You can just tap on the hurricane and it'll show you all the indicators. It'll show you where potential flooding is going to occur. It can show you the assets. And then it can tell you the predictive.
All these areas in red are at high risk right now for flooding and many other things. Like this is going to be very, very dangerous to be in these areas at this time, and could potentially cause. And it's not only just flooding, right? I mean, a lot of that debris is going to cover the roads. Just like when the storm actually stops, it's going to be difficult to get trucks on the roads to these places as well.
Right. No, I mean, the only thing we can hope for is everything goes, we have a downgraded hurricane, or nothing tragic happens. But
as much as I love that, it looks like right now we're forecasting that this is, so right now we're sitting at a category 4, 140 miles an hour. All right, we're planning on jumping up to 175 mile an hour winds, in a little bit of time. That's a couple hours out. This is about, by 8 a.m. tomorrow, winds should die down, right, to a little over 100 miles an hour. Will be a category 1. But look at where we are. We've already gone past New Orleans, past Houston, past Lafayette. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
And we're still at a category 1, which doesn't sound dangerous, but when you've covered that much land by that time, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a massive deal. And so, what is everyone doing? They're just all going to try to avoid those areas. And so, to our point, you're just going to need to see when does everything go back to normal after this. And so, shippers are going to see higher rate per miles in order to get some of their goods taken care of out, once this hurricane passes. And then, the age-old question of when are my rates going to start to go down? This is when we need those signals in order to tell me, okay, well, rates are starting to soften a little bit. And I mean, we're still not back to anywhere close to where we were a couple months ago or even last year, but at least an indicator of, the budget's not going to be completely blown.
Yeah, absolutely. And like carriers tend to make their most money when rates are going up, obviously.
Right.
But brokers tend to make the most when rates are going down. So we need to understand that, because if you're a broker, you need to understand when you have leverage, and if you're a carrier, you need to know where to position your trucks.
Right.
Right. And obviously, I want to position them in the markets that are continuing to increase. Right. And as markets do continue to soften, I need to understand when to avoid those areas.
Right.
And that's exactly what this is going to tell you. I mean, if we go back to our map here, right? This is the inbound tender rejection numbers here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I mean, we're sitting at almost 38% here in New Orleans. If I zoom this out just a tick, there are still other areas in the country that are extremely hot. Still, Decatur, Georgia at 35%, right?
Well, to your point, I mean,
Louisville 43%.
The average for the United States is still north of 20%. So, I mean, you're going to have these massive areas. I mean, the darker the blue on this map, guys, is really telling you which areas have the highest amount of tender rejection rates. And so the really dark blues are really those hot spots for really rate per mile increases. And so, what a great time to capitalize, I guess.
Absolutely. El Paso, 50% outbound tender rejection rates right now.
Oh, El Paso.
That's ridiculous. So literally 50%, literally every other load that a shipper's offers is rejected at the contracted rate. Can we think about that for a minute?
Yeah.
I mean, that is so
Let's stop and ponder.
I mean, if you're a shipper, you basically can say forget it to getting any loads covered at rates that were probably promised 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, and then the moment that the softness does occur, what are we going to see? And I hope all of the carriers and brokers are prepared for this. We're going to see an insane amount of bids go out. I mean, the amount of bids that once we start to see the softness occur, because we all know, I mean, we see it from 2018 to 2019, record high rate per miles. Everyone has their time. Right now, it's the carrier's time. And so once it snaps back into the shipper's time, you bet your bottom dollar they're gonna be wanting to rebid that when it's on the way down.
You know, I think we're going to see a lot less long-term bids. I think that's starting to dwindle away, and as it should, because as shippers understand this period of volatility, and we have such extreme volatile movements like we have right now, which we really haven't seen before, and then that's continuing to increase and happen more often, it seems. I mean, there's no point in negotiating rates for a year if, I mean, your routing guide is going to reject it anyway when periods of volatility come down, and that hurts you operationally, and you're still forced to the spot market. I think we're going to see a lot more shorter bids, as well as just rates determined at the time of booking.
Right. I mean,
here are this week's rates.
I mean, Walmart. One of the top executives of Walmart was on a podcast with one of the top load boards in the industry, and one thing that they were talking about was a constant procurement cycle, where they're just validating what is going on a constant basis, whether it be weekly, monthly, or really, I think that's just it, weekly or monthly. And so they're just constantly running through their bids just to make sure that they're getting the best rate per mile that they can possibly get, and if they're going to renegotiate, they're going to see it really quick. And so I think that's really where the application of lane scorecard comes into effect, is that if you're having to go through all of these mini bids right now, or if you're having to cherry pick, I mean, these shippers are definitely not going to make it easy for you. And so what's another way that you could try to maximize this and start to triage these loads into, okay, what do I want to bid on? What are the easiest loads? And so that's really where that lane scorecard, if you were with us last week, really helps you do.
Yeah, it really helps you plan for the future and understand what you're going to be getting yourself into over the next month, 3 months, a year, whatever it may be, and understanding, and gives you that level of focus to be able to decide, here's where we have the most opportunities. Here's where we have the least opportunities. I think in freight, we need to get away from the idea that people are good at really understanding market conditions. We're good at having an idea, but people are really good at relationships, and people need to stay. And I think if we can continue to give people back time to understand, okay, hey, here's the market conditions. I don't need to second guess myself. This is simply what's happening. And now I can take that information and build my relationships with my shippers. It's
what's already become. I mean, it's the reason why we're so valuable amongst brokers and carriers right now, but also why we're so valuable amongst shippers in that community. And I mean, that's something coming from our sales and new opportunity side, is that we're starting to see that because we just want to have these conversations. Shippers and carriers and brokers just want to be on the same playing field. Shippers are tired of being taken advantage of, and then brokers and carriers don't want to be just drilled to the dirt on rate per mile. And so I think this data allows them to have that conversation and be able to provide data points, not anecdotal evidence over what they think is happening. So this, I mean, just another way of how we're pursuing to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and throw up something on the screen here real quick. So what we're looking at here in front of us is this is the tender, in blue, you've got the tender rejection rates in the United States. Now, I know everybody has seen this before. We look at it fairly often. But what we don't typically do is look at tender rejections from other years. So tender rejections right now sitting at just south of 25%. That's today. Right? The green line is 2018. The orange line is 2019. So 2019 was a very soft year. Everybody knows that. But we are nearly at the high point from 2018. We're not quite there yet. We're about 2% off. It hit about 26.5% there a couple of times. So we're almost there. We're almost there. This right here is like, everybody knows the market's tight right now, but that's not enough anymore. That's not enough. Like, you have to be able to go to your shippers. If I'm a broker or a carrier and I'm justifying more money, it's just like, listen, the market's tight. Your routing guide's falling apart. I can take care of you, but I need to be compensated for that. Or vice versa. When things are down here, understanding that if I'm a shipper, right, my volume's more valuable to you right now. I don't need your truck. If you're going to move my freight, You're going to take it for less. So just understanding that these cycles happen and are so violent right now especially gives perspective as to just simply wanting more money or wanting to pay less if you're a shipper, right? This right here is exactly that. It takes the guessing game out.
It gives you the ultimate, signal of what's to come. I mean, the moment that these rates and the volumes here that we're looking at, which is all-time high, God, if I could have that in my portfolio, wouldn't that be great?
Right.
But just like in the stock market, I mean, that's why you see all these analysts looking at any indicator, alternative data sources to identify whether or not something's going up or down. That's really what we're trying to give to the transportation market, which is giving you an opportunity to have a leading indicator or a signal of rates are going to be moving. They're constantly moving. We're in a capitalistic environment where it's the free market. It moves with supply and demand. And what do we provide here is supply and demand metrics. And so giving you that identification of, all right, it's going down. And then furthermore to that, I mean, all of this out of US map is fantastic, but drilling down into the specific markets is really what makes us valuable as well. And so by doing so, because, I mean, you could have tender rejections at 22%, but like we said, shown in Tulsa, Joplin, we're looking at 44%, 45%, but then in certain areas of the country, it could be less than 15. So you need to know your market. And so that's why these granularities by length of haul, by specific geographical areas, really bring more value so that you can be as custom as you need with this. And so what are you working on over there? I hear you tapping.
You hear me tapping the screen? Just
tapping.
Hey man, I'm just messing around over here. No, so you mentioned Lane Scorecard, which is like a phenomenal bid tool, right? How do we understand what's happening today? How do we monitor our network? How are we exposed to the market, right? I know my network, but what's going on around me? What's the market doing around me? Right. That I don't see, right? Everyone talks at, well, I'm feeling this in the market or I'm feeling that in the market, and that's great and all, but that's your specific network. What folks miss is, if we look at, okay, so CH is probably like the largest truckload mover in the United States, right? JB Hunt's up there, Nice Swift's up there, right? All those guys. If we look at JB Hunt, for example, they don't even have 1% of the market.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so small when you think about the size of the market. That's not to say that they aren't big. They obviously are, but they even as large as they are, they still have a narrow view of the market, and that's where this tool can come into play. So flip this up on the screen for the folks to see. What I just did, I just uploaded 2 random lanes. This is a newer update that we came out with. But what this tells you here is it tells you exactly everything you need to know. So for example, I'm looking at this on a month period, so a 30-day period. So Chattanooga, that's where we are. We're going to Louisiana, hurricane time, right?
Hello.
Let's go. Over the past 30 days, rates have increased 28% on this lane. And we're forecasting them to go up about 0.5% 30 days from today, right? Now, we're, distance, driving hours, drive-in, all that stuff self-explanatory. But here's where you get into some fun stuff. You've got a volatility score here. That's on a scale from 1 to 100. The closer you are to 1, the less volatile price is going to be on that lane.
Right.
The closer you are to 100, the more volatile price is going to be on that lane.
Right.
And that's, how would you use that? If you were a broker or even a carrier, how would you use that?
It really just helps me understand my risk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm a really low volatility score, I'd feel pretty confident in my ability to maintain the price that I have. But then in addition to that, because I think that it really is just identifying the upward or downward movement, but the lane score can also, paired with the volatility score, gives you a true sense of how a carrier and broker can actually functionally use this on a day-to-day basis.
So what is lane score?
I'm glad you asked, Luke. Lane score.
It's like I know what questions to ask or something. Like I've seen this before.
I don't know. No, we bring new content every week to our crew here with Sonar. But what lane score does is it just tells you how attractive that lane is on an OD pair. So on a 1 to 36, 1 being very easy market conditions to cover this load on, and then 36 being extremely difficult market conditions. Those are your truly backhaul markets that you're going into. Places, certain parts of Arizona, or those red markets on our haul map. And so really it tells you exactly where you should be focusing your time. And so these brokers, these carriers, they can really utilize that to, okay, does it have a very easy score? Is it something I can do more spot negotiations on? Is it a difficult score? Do I need to start procuring these relationships more? And that's, I think, really what it allows you to do. And because we talked about, it's all about relationship building. What's your secret sauce that you put on your rates? Are you a load board type of just kind of add 20% onto it, or do you provide your service into it and you just look at, what do I provide? What are the carriers that I work with?
So when I worked in truckload brokerage, we didn't have any of this stuff. If I had this information here, I would literally just take this and just send it to all of my customers or even prospects. And I would just tell them, like, listen, when I go about making decisions, this is how I do it. This is the market data. I'm going to be transparent. I have all of this information here, as opposed to, hey, can you move a load? What's your rate? I don't know, $1,200. How'd I come up with that? I chucked a dart at a board. Yeah. Right? This right here is just like, hey, the reason why I'm pricing you the way I am is because lane score is high. It's going to be a little more difficult to cover. It's going to require a little bit more of my time to make sure that you're taken care of. Or, hey, I can be a little more aggressive on these lanes if you give me a little more volume. Because lane score is a little lower. I'm going to spend less time on those loads. It's a little easier. If you give me more freight, I can reward you better by saving you a little money. Or even just
setting expectations straight up and just, hey, this has high potential for me to lose capacity on. So I can try to get it for that price, but just do understand that these market conditions are extremely difficult. Yeah. And I think, it depends on your customer. You're going to have people who are going to be like, well, good luck. Yeah. Have fun with that. I got 10 other brokers that I deal with, but at least you can allocate your time, and if it's a difficult load, you can at least quote appropriately, because that's what we don't want to have happen, especially at a brokerage, is that you get your sales team that's quoting, the front line talking to the customers, and then the load gets put on in your TMS, and then it gets sent over to your carrier team, and the carrier team's like, what did he sell this for? And I got to find capacity for that? Oh man, and you start seeing that margin just dwindle. And so this allows the sales team to really understand what they're getting into and being transparent with just internally the sales and the carrier side of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of brokers are judged on what's your buy rate and what's your sell rate. Yeah. What are you buying this for? Is it a good rate, or what are you selling it for? Is it a bad rate? I know we're getting here towards the end of time. But Kyle, we're actually, you and I, we've got we're playing a little Top Golf after this. Yeah. Properly socially distanced.
Masks fully worn.
Properly distanced in our pods.
Yep. I'm definitely going to need some additional distance from you. I don't take you as a golf guy. You're more of a swimmer, right?
I'm going to be honest. I have never played a full round of golf in my life.
Okay.
So this is my golf experience. So the first time before I worked in for FreightWaves, I was at another company, and they were having like a company golf outing, and it was one of those you play the best ball type of thing. So everybody's teamed up with like 4 people. First time, I had never been on a golf course in my life, and literally one of my buddies that I know, he plays a lot of golf. I was like, hey man, take me to the driving range. We went to the driving range, hit a couple balls the day before, went out on the golf course, boom. My first hit is the first tee, and I told the guys, I was like, listen guys, I never played golf before, don't expect a lot from me, I'm just out here to have fun, drink a couple beers. And
it's all for a good cause.
Exactly, right? They all hit off of T1, they all get some good shots. Oh yeah, it was a good warm up. I'm just like, all right, whatever. So I basically Happy Gilmore the ball on the first hole.
A little breakfast ball.
I swing, I chuck up so much dirt right there on the tee off. It's just, it's one of those things where you kind of look around in shame of did you guys see that?
Golf is one of those things that you can either be extremely embarrassed or you can just embrace it. And so try to be that in-betweener, and
anyway,
don't take it too
Top Golf,
serious.
my goal is to hit it at the back wall the whole time, and that's literally it.
Crank it.
Crank it.
Luke's going to lose a couple shafts today. The head of the driver is going to fall off because he's just going to be taking up turf with every shot. So we'll keep you in the know for tomorrow and let you know whether or not Luke made it out alive. Exactly. But no, thank you guys.
You know I didn't if I come up with one of these on the other arm next week.
Jeez. Oh boy. All right.
Anyway, sorry. That's enough. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of With Sonar. We actually have our global trade event happening 2 Wednesdays from today. So in about 2 weeks, 3 Wednesdays from today. It's the 16th, I believe.
Yes.
And we're actually going to have another host that as well. So in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.